Good morning. Is it even morning, actually? No, it's like 2 o'clock. Good afternoon. Hi, guys. So I'm really excited to be on here. I know I was said I'm going to go live yesterday, but then yesterday, one of my clients had like a little mini emergency. She's fine, but I just was like, let me take care of her and we'll do this today. So here we are. We are talking about what is the deal with hormonal weight loss? Isn't it all just about calories anyways? And so, first of all, I just have to tell you that I'm really excited and happy because I just got off the phone with another client who is now down like 20 pounds and literally had tried everything and was so frustrated and had tried like every other diet and had tried even like the more like crunchy diets. She had tried being paleo and she did Whole30 and she tried just being low carb. She tried intermittent fasting, like all these things that had helped other people and just didn't work for her. And now she's down 20 pounds. So like, that's really exciting. So I'm like extra happy because of that. Anyways, so we're here now. Say hi, because I see people on, but I can't see who it is. So I like to know. So first of all, hi, Chaya. So I first want to start by kind of unpacking the myth of calories. Not that calories don't exist, but the myth of calories in versus calories out, right? Because first of all, right, I want to present like a new paradigm, but to do that, I first have to like explain like why it's necessary. And so, you like my sweatshirt? It's like to me, it's cold. Like in LA, it's like 49 degrees. Like for LA, that's really cold. So I'm like in my cozy sweatshirt. Anyways, but I put on earrings for you. Anyways, so the myth, the foundation of like the calories out, calories in versus calories out method itself is problematic because it's based off of the assumption that calories out is stable. Right? So the assumption is that, okay, right. So what's like general advice? Like if you ask like anyone on the street, you're like, hey, I want to lose weight. They'll be like, all right, eat less and exercise more. Right? And so like, and then people try that and like, it may or may not work in the short term, but everyone's experience with dieting is like, all right, if it did work, it got progressively suckier because I got hungrier and hungrier, right? When you work out, you get more hungry. So I'm eating less and I'm working out and I'm hungrier. And you may or may not, depending on your hormonal foundation, actually lose weight doing that. But it's the keeping it off that's like the actual struggle. And then people always assume when it comes back that like you let yourself go, you fall off the wagon, you lost your willpower. You may even say that to yourself, but that's totally not the case because calories in and calories out are not independent of each other. They're interdependent. And so, right, if you start eating less, your body will start using less. You with me on that, right? So people are like, oh, it's just my metabolism. It's my metabolism. The truth is that a lot of overweight people actually have a very fast metabolism. Especially if they're people that suffer from what's called leptin resistance, which means they never feel full. So people that never feel full, leptin is the hormone that makes you feel full. If you're resistant to it, it means that even when your body produces it, you're not feeling it. And so you can eat and eat and eat. And I know the light's really weird in here and I look all washed out. I promise I'm not super washed out. Now you can see my dirty house in the background probably, but whatever. Not my but the point is that if a person has leptin resistance, then it's not about their willpower. It's that they literally don't get the cue that they're full. So they wind up eating a lot more than their body truly needs. And then their metabolism speeds up to try and compensate for that. But they still can have a very high percentage of fat tissue, and that's because it's determined by your hormone levels. Your hormone levels are determined your body's set weight point, which is very much a thing. And probably a lot of you can relate to that because let's say you go, you just kind of eat whatever. Not like a maniac, but you just eat whatever relative healthy foods you like to eat. You don't just keep gaining weight. You don't go all over the scale, up 25 pounds, down 13 pounds. Like probably everyone pretty much, unless there's like major, like I'm talking about like extreme morbid obesity, right? That kind of thing. But most of us who are like, want to lose 20 pounds, 50 pounds, even like 100 pounds, there's just a body set weight point that your body's like, I want to be at this point, right? If at any point, like I'm getting confusing, like there's so many things I want to talk about, and sometimes I'm jumping around. I want to explain that concept of a body set weight point, right? So every system in our body is regulated, right? And it's so sort of funny to me that like even like physicians or, you know, people in the medical world or, you know, dietitians who've had their masters in nutritional science, which I don't. I'm a nutritionist. I didn't get my master's. I did a different program, and then like endless years of self-study and like over 10 years of like practice with clients, but that's a whole separate issue. That people think that, you know, every other system in the body is regulated, but weight is not. Like, what? Like, why would your body not regulate that? It regulates everything, right? So when your body is always trying to be 98.6 degrees, and if you get cold, you'll start to shiver because your body's trying to raise your body heat, right? And it also, you feel the cold, you want to put more clothes on, you want to drink a hot tea, right? So your body's trying to get you back up to 98.6. And if you're hot, if it's hot out, if you're in Florida and it's hot, you get hot and you start to sweat because your body's trying to get your temperature back down to 98.6, and you want to drink cold things and you want to take off your sweatshirt, right? So every system is regulated that way. Why? And our weight is also, like, why would our weight also not be? Like, that's so that's so nonsensical. And it is. It's literally determined by certain hormone levels determined. It's basically levels of different hormones in your blood determine what your body set weight point is. And so if you try just to, you know, eat less and move more, it's counterproductive. It's like telling, you know, if it's hot out, it's like just telling the person to like stop sweating almost. like what? Like, you know, so, or like, you know, you cut someone, don't bleed. Like there's a physiological thing happening here. And so really the best analogy that I use most often, and you may have heard me say it before, even though I haven't talked about this a ton yet, but I will, is like a thermostat. That your body set weight point is like the thermostat you have in your house. Lisa has a question. What should our hormone levels be? Should we get labs to check? Great question. You can. In my experience, I've been doing this now for about 2 years with people. 99% of the time, all of the issues, they're subclinical. So your blood work comes back fine. Hallelujah. That's great. Like, because usually the hormone levels won't be problematic until the person's like morbidly obese or they have type 2 diabetes already. And so I'm not concerned with, like, when I have clients like, oh, should I get my blood work done? I'm like, if you have it, you're welcome to send it to me, but I don't need it. It's all based off of your experience and your symptoms, because like those never lie. Hey, Rachel, no, you didn't miss it. I just did it today instead of yesterday. And so, and we can talk about that deeper another time. I am preparing like a whole really cool, really in-depth thing, but I just wanted to like get started on it with, you know, I don't want to like wait till everything's perfect. I want to just like start now to explain how this all works for people. But what I was saying is that it's a lot like a thermostat in your house, right? So, you know, so right now I have my thermostat set, I don't even know what probably like 72 or something. If I open the window or my sliding door, see, there it is to my porch, then it will get colder in here for a little bit. And then once my thermostat's like, oh, it's colder, it will turn the heat back on. And that's what we all experienced, right? If you try and like cut calories, which would be like the equivalent to like opening the window, you know, or exercising, you are burning through more calories, but you're not addressing the root of the issue, right? Because what happens, you burn more than your body, your thermostat just kicks back on, and it will slow down your metabolism and also make you hungrier and make you irritable and make you cold, right? The same way, right? When you're fighting your body's mechanism, your body will do everything it can to get you back to where it wants to be. The same way, when you're hot, you don't want a blanket, you don't want tea, you want an iced tea, and you want to be in a tank top on with getting sprayed by the ocean, right? So the idea that if your body wants to be at a certain weight and you're going to force it, you're going to I'm going to work out so hard and I'm just going to eat celery, and Yehuda's husband does celery juice, maybe I should just do a celery juice fast. I don't recommend doing a celery juice fast. By the way, just making that clear. You can have it in the morning or whatever, we could talk about what he's doing another time. But you might notice he is not someone who, Baruch Hashem, please God, may continue forever. He doesn't have weight issues. So there's a whole separate thing happening there. And so right. So let's say, you did that, your body's trying to get you comfortable again. What it decided, because it's regulated. I feel like I'm a little stuttery because I have so many things I want to say. So if it's not making sense, please tell me. But so the same thing happens if you're going to fight your body by I'm going to eat so little, I'm going to work out so much, I'm going to burn through so many calories. Yeah, you're it's not nothing what you're doing, but it's the equivalent of opening the windows and turning on the fans where the thermostat's just going to turn back on. Right. And then you beat yourself up and say I have no willpower. What's wrong with me? Blah, blah, blah. Nothing's wrong with you. It's just, you're not addressing the root of the issue. Right. I would even say, I'm thinking of another analogy, but maybe I won't go there. I will. Okay, I'll go there. I don't know if it's the best analogy in the world, but that's what I thought of is, if a kid is, if you have a child that is being super, obnoxious to you, I'm not a parenting expert, as you know, but I would say, just, critical thinking and just, life experience tells me that, yelling at my kid and being tougher with my kid and you better not speak to me. Maybe whatever, maybe there's a time and place. I don't like being that way. I don't think it's the point. But being tougher to control my child, you can't speak to me that way, may or may not work a little bit in the short term. But what's the real issue? I think, again, in my unprofessional opinion about parenting, that if my child is being obnoxious to me, it's because they're not feeling connected to me. They're maybe feeling I don't understand them. They're feeling something's there's something real going on there. There's a disconnect. Thank God in general, my children, please God, may it continue and increase forever, are kind, respectful people. And so if they're, not being that way towards me, there's a reason there. And so me muscling and forcing them, so to speak, because I'm bigger and stronger and I pay the rent, is not going to be a long-term solution because, first of all, it's not nice. But it's not what's the real issue? The real issue is there's a reason why they're doing that. Maybe I hurt their feelings. Maybe they had a bad day at school. Maybe they failed a test and feel bad about it. There's a million real reasons. And unless we address it on that level, we're just kind of kicking sand around, right? Because what happens, and I've had this happen with my kids, right? Is maybe they're being so mad or whatever. And then I go talk to them and then they start to cry and tell me about this really difficult thing that happened. And then I'm so grateful that I didn't yell at them. And instead I was took a more compassionate approach. And then of course the obnoxiousness goes away because it was never what was actually happening. And so the same thing with our weight. If we think we're gonna strong arm ourselves and twist our arm about it and force our body to lose weight, which is I feel kind of the narrative, and maybe they're not so obnoxious about it, but it's sort of the narrative is you're going to force yourself to lose weight. Your body is holding on to it and you're going to force it. I'm that's a terrible idea. Why would you want to force your body to do something it doesn't want to do? Why don't you trust your body that your body's really freaking smart and has depending on your belief system, thousands to millions to billions or trillions of years of evolution, working for it, and maybe we should listen and work with it rather than fight it. And so when it comes to the reason why weight loss is predominantly a hormonal thing is because it's not just about, you know, calories in and calories out. It's even more so, interestingly, because some people, right, you see this probably, you're like, oh, I have this one friend who like eats so much all the time and they're so thin. They just have a really fast metabolism, right? So we just assume it's a metabolism, but 99% of the time it's not a metabolism thing. It's an allocation thing. Because how many heavy people do you know, heavy being like however you want to describe it, you know, whatever you want to categorize it, that they eat a lot, but they're hungry a lot, and they're cold a lot, and they're tired a lot. So you would think if you get like all that fuel, you would be satisfied, and you would have energy, and you would be in a good mood, and you'd be warm, right? Like, isn't that the purpose of food? Right? But, and sometimes people are eating garbage and you're like, oh, it's not surprising if you live off of Twinkies, even if you're eating boxes of them. But I can tell you, I've worked with hundreds of clients who are not, they are not coming from Twinkies to me, right? They're like, I tried 1,000 things. I did Whole30. I went paleo. I did Weight Watchers, like, and it didn't help me, or it didn't help me in the long term, or made it worse in the long term, or whatever it is, right? That, what's the point of that? The point of that, okay, is that it's not about what's coming in and what's coming out. It's about how your body is using what's coming in and what's coming out, right? Because, like, we think, like, your metabolism's like, oh, if you work out a bunch, then you burn a lot more. It's not necessarily the case, as probably a lot of you can testify to. I know before I figured this out, like, when I was, like, and in nutrition school, so part of my nutrition schooling is that I studied over 100 different dietary theories. And a big part of the curriculum is you're supposed to, and I did, like, try them all, like, while you're studying it. So you have, like, a firsthand experience of what it's like to be entirely plant-based, what it's like to be keto, what it's like to do, like, all these different, like, extremes, so that you, even if you only do it for a week or two or whatever, you know, you get, like, a taste for what it's like, and it's not just, like, the scientific literature, it's also, like, what goes on for me, right? I have so many thoughts. I feel like I keep losing my train of thought. What was I saying about? Why did I tell you that? I don't even remember now. Of that, whatever. I'll go back to my last point. You can remind me if you guys remember why I got into that. But the point is that it's about the way that your body allocates the energy. It's not just what's coming in and what's coming out. Oh, I was saying about that, about the calories in versus calories out, that part of it also was like different kind of like workouts, and like, oh no, cardio is better, no, high intensity is better. Like, well, first of all, like, it's all better for different things. But even, like, I know when I work out a lot, I get stronger, I get happier, I don't get thinner. And a lot of people don't. And I even have in my notes that I was going to talk about that like exercise is amazing. It's wonderful for so many things. And it is not particularly useful for burning through fat tissue, right? So if your goal is to be like a bodybuilder, then yes. If you want to run a marathon, train for it. If you want to be stronger, then you got to like use those muscles to make them stronger. But if you're trying specifically to burn through fat tissue, you have to adjust the hormones that determine that you're going to let your body, that your body's like, I'm okay with doing that. I can adjust my body's set weight point, right? And so we want to change how your body's allocating the fuel that you take in, right? It's not just what you're eating, because, right, you're probably eating pretty well, right? Hold on, someone had a comment. So get this, I always say that my body is happy at the weight that it's at. I'm always up or down like 2 pounds. Exactly, Lisa. Boom, right? Right, you get, like, if you go away for a week and you kind of like eat like a pig or whatever, like, you may gain like, probably like 2 pounds, and then you just go back to normal and it comes off. And on the other side of that, if you diet like crazy, maybe you lose a couple pounds, and then when you go back to normal, your body balances out at its like happy place, right? And so, and that's determined by hormones. It's not that your metabolism's changing constantly. It's that your hormone level determine that. Let me check my notes. Okay. So I talked about the concept, just as a little recap, that every system in our body is regulated, and weight is no different, and fat tissue is no different. And so that's why just reducing your calories will not sustainably get you to a lower body set weight point, right? It's the equivalent of like opening the windows and the house gets cooler, but then the thermostat comes back on. And on top of that, if you over a long period maintain that diet, if you're one of those people that does have insane willpower and you don't care that you're cold and like your nails are becoming brittle and you're like irritable and you lost your period and like whatever the other terrible things that people experience when they're chronically low calorie dieting, even if you stick with it, what winds up happening is your body doesn't like that. It wants to be at its set weight point, and so it will then, yes, it will slow down your metabolism because it's like, this is not right. It's like what happens if you're, if you're cold for a super long time. Your body's not just like, all right, I'll just be cold. Like, you start to shiver if you don't, if that doesn't work. It like all these different mechanisms start going on to get your body's like desperately trying to get your body weight back up. Right? I mean, your temperature. So the same thing happens with our weight if we're not addressing the root of the issue. Okay. Oh, and that's why, by the way, when people stop with their diets, they don't just gain it back. They gain back like +2 or +5, which is like the worst, most frustrating thing in the world for people, right? And then everyone's like, oh, I know I already said this, but like, it just makes me so upset. Oh, she let herself go. Or he, happens to guys too, right? Oh, he let himself go. Oh, they're married now. Now she just like, and I'm like, do you know how it tortures people to be overweight? Like, no one just would be like, I don't care. Anyone who says they don't, I mean, listen, what do I know? Maybe they don't care. But anyone who's tried, like, and I really don't believe it's a vanity thing. I really, we want to feel comfortable in who we are. It's the same reason why it's interesting. Like, I naturally am like a very like airy-fairy, like hippy-dippy musician artist type. And like anything like practical and down to earth, I totally used to like laugh at. Sorry, my hair's like doing weird stuff. Like, I have a friend who recently became a personal stylist. And I was like, that's awesome. Because I know how much better I feel when I look put together. You know what I'm saying? Like, like that feeling when you just like look good and you know it, and not in an arrogant way. What it does, I think, when you like put together like that, you just feel like more free to be who you really are. You feel like that you match the inside and the outside. And when you like haven't brushed your teeth and you're in your pajamas and like you don't know when you last showered, like, you don't feel like a rock star. And if you would get like an awesome opportunity and like see someone really cool that you admire, you would probably like not even want to go say hi to them because you feel like such a pathetic version of yourself. Right? And so I told her, I was like, I think what you're doing is awesome. And I think that you're really doing deep work with people and that you're really changing their lives, because when a person feels good in their skin, they feel embodied. They feel like they're really who they are in their life. And that's what I think it's really about with like being at a weight that feels good to you. It's not vanity. It's not that you wish you were like the Kardashians, like, please, I mean, if you do, like, that's okay with me. But I'm saying, I don't think that's what it's about for people. I think you want to feel that you are, I mean, it sounds so hokey, but it really is what I mean. You want to feel like who you are is like shining out of you and not hiding and not like hidden, which again, it's not just a weight thing. It's also like, I think a good haircut is worth the price. Like, I don't mind, like my mom would always say that. She's like, listen, if you want to buy your shoes at Payless, like, that's fine, but I'm taking you for a good haircut, because when your haircut is bad, like, you just feel so like, then like nothing looks good when your haircut is bad. And it's true, and it's a lot of things that I think like you can mistake as being like external or shallow, but I think honestly it's the opposite of shallow. It's the opposite of shallow. It's about recognizing the truth that you are a full human, and so you have your spirit and you have your body and they're connected, And the more they match, the more you are a force of nature in your life. And I almost give myself goosebumps saying that. Because it feels really true. It feels really true. And I think that that's what we want. Not all of us, like we all have different things, but we want to feel like we're a force of nature for our life, for what we want to accomplish, what we feel called to do, for the kind of person you want to be. And the more you feel that your body and your spirit and your soul are aligned, the more you feel unstoppable. And I would say the more unstoppable you are. And that's not shallow. And that's not stemming from shame or self-hate or like media images. I think, I mean, I'm sure it's like sprinkled in there. I think we're all a mixed bag. But I think that that the desire to be well and to feel well in your body comes from a really truthful, honest place. And that's why, like, until I figured this part of it out, I never did weight loss with people. A lot of my clients would lose weight anyways, but I never like marketed myself in that way. I'd be like, I can help you with your cycle. I can help you with your skin. I can help you with your digestion. I can help you with your mood. And then most people, because like we were addressing all those hormonal issues, like on accident, basically, we would wind up fixing the weight hormones too. But until like 2 years ago, I couldn't like figure out, I couldn't isolate that part of it to like specifically do that. Which is why for me also only in the last like year and a half, 2 years was I able to lose the weight, because I was like sure as hell not gonna like do things that I knew were gonna make it worse. Right? Like all the other concepts. And I only wanted to do things that felt like they were being kind to me and respectful to me. And then as soon as gratefully I found it, I was like, and honestly, it was so funny when I first started to do it with myself. Like, I didn't tell anyone because I was like scared that it was like, I figured it out. I was like, oh my God, this is like, sorry. Hope I'm not distracting you, but I'm totally distracted by my hair. But I didn't want to tell anyone because even though the science like totally made sense, I was so skeptical and so like, had been so used to just like, okay, I just won't think about my weight. I just won't think about it because like, I love myself. I'm a good person. I'm doing good in my life. I'm healthy. Like, what does it help? I feel like I'm just like stuck like this. I already do everything right. And I'm not going to like beat myself to oblivion in an attempt to like, I just won't do that. So, but I was still like so nervous that it wasn't going to work. And then like in the first week I lost 5 pounds and I was like, oh my God. And then like only like a month and a half later, my husband's like, what are you doing? Like, you're looking really different. I was like, I still like didn't want to say anything because I'm also like extremely rebellious. And I felt like if I told him what I was doing, like how it was working and that I was doing it intentionally, that then I would feel like I had to like rebel. Like he doesn't care, but I like, one of the things he'll do just to like piss me off sometimes is he'll just be like, hey Shayna, don't. And he doesn't even finish the sentence, but just telling me not to do something, like I'm like, don't tell me what to do, and it makes me crazy. Anyways, the point is that that I think it's really valuable to approach it from this perspective because you're honoring your body's wisdom. You're giving your body more of what you need instead of fighting with it, right? When you give your body what it needs, it works. And hey, Steph. And so that's awesome. What's the other thing? Oh, I wanted to talk about the other myth that it's harder for women to lose weight than men. So I will say that women naturally do have generally speaking, have a higher body set weight point because it is healthier for us to have more fat tissue, right? Which is one of the arguments. I love you too, Steph. Hey, Allie, I'm so glad it makes sense. I'm so glad. What part? Tell me which part, because I'm always afraid that I'm just like rambling. But so women do have a naturally higher body fat percentage as we are supposed to. That's healthy. And one of the actual, like, I don't know if I use it as an argument, but one of the things that I'll say to help people understand it, that like it's a hormonal thing, Because sometimes, you know, depending on how entrenched you are in like dieting culture, people like cannot get their minds around it. Like, what do you mean we're not going to count calories, but I'm going to lose weight? I'm like, well, that's exactly what I mean. We're not going to count calories. Like, people are like, how many calories in this? I'm like, I don't know. I don't care. Doesn't matter. I don't know if you guys saw the meme I posted like in the group a while ago, but it was, I forgot what the actor is, some awesome actor. And it, like, the question on top of the meme was like, do you know how many calories in that? And it was him just going, I don't give a shit. Pardon my French. I thought it was really funny. But the point is that, like, first of all, your body has no receptor for calories. It has receptors for fats, for carbohydrates, for proteins, for minerals. Yes, your body's like, oh, that's a thing. There's no measuring in your body of calories. And it's absurd, like, the whole notion that a calorie is a calorie. Like, literally what that's saying is if I give you a plate of brownies that are 1,000 calories and a big salad with, like, ranch dressing and avocado and salmon on it, that's 1,000 calories, that would do, like, the same metabolically in your body. Like, I don't think you need any sort of, like, education to know, like, that's obviously ridiculous. like that's common sense. You don't need to have like a bachelor's in science to like be like, oh, well, but like that's what calories in, calories out says. A calorie is a calorie. Like, that's Weight Watchers. That's counting points. Like, it always makes me bonkers. I see like these little, you know, candy, whether it's Weight Watchers or Optivia little candy bars. I'm like, they're candy bars. Like, maybe it's a candy bar that's like sweetened with like stevia instead of high fructose corn syrup. So I guess that's better. But like, this is not a calories game. Yeah, like, Allie, yeah, giving your body what it needs so it can function better. Exactly. Like, totally. Okay. Oh, but I was talking about the boys and girls thing. That age like 8, boys and girls, generally speaking, have the same, like, they have the same body fat percentage, like, statistically, like at 8 years old, right? At 15, you tell me, do they? No, they don't. Why? Do, like, women suddenly get lazier? Because that's the narrative that we have in our media. Fat people are lazy and have no willpower. Like, that's what the media is telling us. That's what the diet industry. If you go to see, like, your RD at the hospital, and yes, there are wonderful RDs. I just want to say that. There are. But I would say that that's because of who they are as a person and the own independent research that they've done. Because if you would follow the textbook, people are fat because they're lazy and eating too much. And do you think that when a girl goes through puberty, she magically becomes heavier than her brother if they're twins because she suddenly became lazy and started eating too much? Because I don't think that. That's ridiculous. And it's not true. Like, you can see these, you know, even these like athletes, like, you know, they run track and they probably what winds up happening in a lot of households is the girl's like nervous about it. So she's having like a smoothie for breakfast and a salad for lunch, and he's having like steak for breakfast and like a burger from wherever for lunch. And he's still thinner than her because he's a boy. And why? Because a boy's body set weight point is naturally lower than a woman's. Right? And that changes at puberty. Why? Because your hormones change at puberty. Not because you get lazy at puberty. You don't. Your hormones change. You get your period. Maybe you start getting pimples even, which we can talk about also. By the way, if you see, I have a little one right now. Can you see that there? A little pimple? It's actually good news. It's because I'm doing a little mild detox. And often when you do a little detox, you'll get some pimples. Like, so I'm happy about it. I'm like, yeah, proof pudding. My detox is working. Yes, the whole diet industry is crazy. Hallelujah, sister. I agree. So I also want to say about this. It's not just crazy that it's crazy. It's doubly crazy because they like blame the victim. It's this whole thing of like, it's not that our advice is terrible and that's why it's not working. It's that you're not listening and you have no willpower. I'm like, how convenient is that? Right? If they put a medication on the market and it didn't work, would they just like blame the people who are taking it? No, they'd be like, maybe our medication sucks. But when they give terrible diet advice and it doesn't work. They're like, oh, no, it's that people are lazy and not working. I'm like, well, I literally know hundreds of women who were doing what you said and it didn't work for them. Okay. But what were we saying? Why is it harder for women? It's not harder. It's not intrinsically harder. The reason why it often seems harder, and this is like such a kick in the butt, is that most of the time women have tried to diet before, and so they've already lowered their metabolism, right? So most of my clients, most of my practice is women, probably, obviously, especially because I do like hormonal stuff. I have like a handful, a good amount of male clients, but they don't always lose faster. My clients that lose weight fastest are the ones who have not dieted before. Because, meaning maybe they did like, eating clean. Like maybe they did Whole30 or they did, and it did or did not help them. Or they did, they tried being paleo or something like that. But they weren't counting calories. They weren't making themselves like super hungry for extended periods of time. And it's those people who lose more quickly because they haven't slowed down their metabolism. Versus when I work with clients who have tried 1,000 things, their metabolism's already slower. Good news is we can fix it, and we do, but that takes time, right? So like that's what winds up being part of the program is rebuilding their metabolism. And so they'll lose in the beginning, but they lose more slowly than someone who like your metabolism is what it always was. Maybe they naturally burn 2,500, 3,000 calories a day. I mean, that's what it was for the average like person like in the 50s. They were eating like 3,000 calories a day. Now it's closer to 2,000 for the average person. But I mean, again, I don't count, so I don't really care. But that's the reason. That's why it feels like men lose more quickly, is that their set point is naturally lower. But it's also because generally they haven't forced themselves to be hungry. Like when men try to lose weight, they will only, like, oh, I stopped eating junk. For most women, like if they just stop eating junk, they'll also lose. But for a lot of people, that's not enough, which can be frustrating, but is also liberating when you find the answer. So, okay. I feel like I mostly covered what I want to cover. Do you guys have more questions? What did I try and cover? What I wanted to cover today is I wanted to explain why it's a hormonal issue and not a caloric issue. I think I did that. If you're still confused or you need me to elaborate more, let me know. I'd be happy to keep going. But that was really my goal, is like, isn't it all just about the calories? Like what's really interesting is I feel like people never question that because it seems so obvious. Like, oh, I'll just eat less and then I'll lose weight. But it's not so obvious because it doesn't always work that way. And that's what I really wanted to elucidate. It's not just about, right? Also, the other part is that like people think like the only way to adjust your metabolism is from exercise. And there's so many other things because the predominant amount of what you burn is like just your bodily functions. It's keeping you warm. It's your heart pumping. It's thinking. It's your pancreas creating insulin. It's your liver detoxing. Like your body's working hard all the time. And that's what it's spending most of its energy expenditure on. And that's why also if you try and like cut your calories, like you just start feeling like crap because all those things slow down. Right? And then if you try and like exercise harder, you're just like putting more stress on the system, which isn't helping. Well, let's see. Were there questions on here that I didn't answer? Allie, I'm an obsessive calorie counter. You know what? I understand is that because that's really the only tool that that's people have talked about, and so if it's important to you, you try and then it doesn't work and it's frustrating, but it's sort of like, I like to think I'm a pretty balanced person. Maybe I'm not, but I think I am. And like, for example, so I, there's a real thing like antibiotic resistance, right? So I think like when you need antibiotics, like great, I'm so grateful we have them because sometimes you really need them. But when you don't, then you're just building up antibiotic resistance in your system. And so I've had a lot, I have friends or whatever that are like, man, it's so frustrating. I feel like every time that every time I take my kid to the doctor, he gives me antibiotics, and then I ask him, does my kid really need it? And he's like, oh no, for this, he doesn't really need it. And then she's like, well, then why are you giving it to me? And he's like, well, like, you came in. I wanted to give you something to help. And so I'm like, first of all, that sounds like a great doctor, that at least that he's being honest with you. Like that, you know, A+ in my book for that. Number two, those are the tools he has. Like, don't come to me with a broken arm. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't help you with that. But when a person becomes a doctor and goes through medical school, they learn about the different medications for things, and they don't learn alternative methods. They don't learn about how you can just boost your metabolism to not get ear infections anymore, or what foods often trigger that, or whatever, you know. I don't know about herbs, but I know people can treat with herbs. I know there's some really great homeopathic practitioners. I feel like with everything, there's plenty of, like, you know, terrible practitioners too. So, like, use your critical thinking when choosing someone. But meaning, like, people only have the tools that they learn. And so if you're obsessed with calorie counting, you know, instead of beating yourself up, I would say, like, yeah, like, that's the only thing you've learned, right? Okay. So what was it? Okay. Oh, starting to have the same sweater on. Awesome. I actually just got this sweater because I in the past, like, really never liked shopping, always because I felt heavy. And so whenever it was always, like, kind of, like, sucked shopping. And so, but I finally got to the point where I had lost so much weight that, like, all my clothes were just, like, I just looked like a hobo walking around. And, like, all my skirts were rolled up and all my shirts were too long. And I was like, okay, I need to go. So I actually just got this, like, a month ago. And it fits, which is lovely. Okay. So the obvious question is, what do you recommend to place hormones in an optimum state? Great question, right? So again, there's a lot of personal components to it. Like, that's what I do with my clients, because for different people, there's different reasons that things get out of place, right? Like, the same way that if I have clients who, it's the same lens, so to speak, that I approach all of my clients with. So if a person is chronically constipated, I know it's, like, super fun to talk about that, but, like, I deal with it a lot, right? Like, I don't just, like, oh, take Miralax, right? Because for me, I'm like, well, why are you constipated? Are you eating foods you're allergic to? Is your gut flora, like, a disaster because you were on 12 rounds of antibiotics as a child, or, like, after you gave birth and you got an infection, or whatever it is, right? And so your digestion just, like, a disaster because of that. Do you just not drink water? Like, sometimes it is simpler. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes people are like, oh yeah, I drink. I'm like, how much do you drink? And they're like, I don't know, about, like, 1 or 2 of these a day. I'm like, okay, that's not enough. And then for some people, like, literally, they just start drinking more water and it goes away. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not usually what the case is, but sometimes it is. And even if it is, they need a lot of support of, like, transitioning, like, so then how do you get that water in, and what are the foods that are going to help me do that? And, you know, there's a whole transformation happening. But basically, it's a customized protocol that addresses, like, why your hormones are out of whack, right? For some people, their hormones are out of whack because they have a genetic predisposition. Maybe everyone in their family is heavy, or, you know, 5 out of 8. So that's part of it. For some people, maybe they were always thin until they had their kids. And then with each, this is what happened. I was never, okay, truth be told, I was a thin kid. I gained weight at puberty. I was, like, kind of chubby from then on. I wore it fairly well, I'd like to think, but I wouldn't be described as, like, thin from then. And then, but I was like, all right, like, this is me. I was, like, okay with it. Obviously, I mean, was I okay with it? That's a good question. No, I'm lying. I was really uncomfortable in my skin, but I, even from then, found that kind of nothing I did mattered. I already, like, was in a health conscious family. Obviously didn't know what I know now, but, like, I wasn't, you know, I have some clients who, you know, grew up, like, their families are, you know, Italian, and, like, they literally, like, was just, like, carbs and sugar and carbs and sugar and carbs and sugar and, like, snacking on soda, like all day long. And so there was a huge diet component that exacerbated their issue, and that wasn't really the case for me. For me, it was, like, very, very much just more of a hormonal thing that, like, I went through puberty, and as my hormones were, like, reorganizing themselves, they reorganized themselves at, like, a significantly higher rate than I was comfortable in. Then kind of no matter what I did, like I was a pretty active teenager. I surfed and I skateboarded, not well, either of those things, but I did it, and, hiked with my friends and whatever. And my weight, like, never went up or down. It was like my body set weight point was very like right in there. Did not move. Any of my friends from high school can attest to this. Because like we'd all be like, okay, let's do this for a week. Let's be like super healthy and like not have any candy and not extreme crazy things, just like eating well. And everyone would lose like 7 pounds and I'd be like exactly the same. And then when I had each of my kids, I gained like a healthy 30 pounds. And when I gave birth, each of them, it's funny, they both were like 7'14". And I lost like maybe 3 more pounds, like from placenta, and like, just like the extra blood in your body. And then that was like my new set weight point. And so after 2 kids, I was up almost like 40 pounds from before, which I wasn't thin to begin with then. And so the point of that is me saying that is a different hormonal cocktail than someone who's like, I have been heavy my whole life. When I was 2 years old, I was heavy. When I was 4 years old, I have a client who told me, she's like, she remembers her mom telling her in pictures when she was like 6 years old, like, suck in. And like, I really try hard not to judge people. And I really, but like, I heard that and I was like, oh God, you're 6 years old. You're already being told to like suck in, stand at a good angle, hold the phone like here, not here. So you can see, and just hurts my soul. But the point of where I'm sharing that is that, so when I do this with clients, it's very personalized because there's different reasons. There's a different things happening, and so the reason why it's so effective is we're like addressing why it's happening for you, right? So it may not be the exact same thing of what's happening for me. The same way that, if I have 5 clients come in with PCOS or PMS, or like I mentioned, like the digestive, maybe they're not constipated mouth, maybe they have, diarrhea. Like I don't give them all the same thing because it's happening for different reasons for each of them. And so there may be, as far as like what's the same, it depends on how far you like pull back the lens, right? So for all of them, like, okay, they're not eating junk, right? I'll be like, okay, let's not eat the foods that are just, just full of junk. Like that's not helping your hormones. Let's take out the things that are endocrine disruptors, which are specifically foods that disrupt your hormone balance. But when it comes to what we actually do, it's a very, very personalized protocol. And I am working on, again, it may sound like a long time doing this for 2 years, but like in comparison to like the other work, I've been doing women's health and hormones for like 10 years. So a big part of what I'm doing is also keeping track of what are the similarities. What do I see coming up again and again and again and again, so that I can like make it more streamlined for people. Although again, I do feel that like a huge part of what makes it so successful is that it is so personalized. So with like, again, oh, Miriam, I'm so glad that it's so enlightening. Love that word. My husband makes fun of me because he sound like a hippie when I use it, but I'm like, listen, you married a hippie, that's what you get. That's what you get. But so, we're addressing, and that also makes it really like, enticing for people because you can feel a difference right away. You can see a difference right away. It makes a difference. It's tailored for you. And then I also make sure to like make it super practical. Like, maybe the foods that my first idea, you're like, oh, I think those are disgusting. So like, okay, we'll have to find another idea because like, if it's gross, like, not going to happen. You won't do it. Maybe one day, but not every day. Like, forget it. So we got to make it realistic for you. So, yeah. So like, as far as like pulling the lens out, starting with common sense is always good. Like anything that you're like, is there food coloring in this? Does this, is this banned in several other countries? But because there's like a degree, every system will have degrees of corruption, but our food supply and like what's legal here in a lot of other countries is not legal. So like, maybe cut that stuff out, And again, because it's a hormonal thing, like that's why it's like, it's not just the calories. Like for example, and again, I'm not like a crazy person about organic. I try not to be a crazy person about anything. I can't say that I'm not, but I try. I do try to get my food organic as much as possible, not just because of the hypothetical, like the blah, 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 but I know, like, literally there's different pesticides, like glyphosate, for example, like, is an endocrine disruptor and does encourage insulin resistance, which is one of the major players in hormonal weight gain or loss. And so again, it's not the biggest thing. I have plenty of clients who like cannot afford or cannot be bothered, whether it's afford financially or afford mentally, to just do organic. And that's okay. Like, we can work with that. Like, we can, if you get the most important things, which again, depends on the person, right? It's not like, these are the things. It's like, it depends. Like, for some people, this matters the most. And for some people, this matters the most. But that's one thing, right? It's like, if, aspartame is a horrendous endocrine disruptor. It affects your hormones. Your endocrine system is the system of hormone. It's the system of organs, right? It's your thyroid, it's your pancreas, it's your pineal gland, it's your pituitary gland, it's your ovaries. And so, if it's an endocrine disruptor, it means it's getting in the way of those things doing what they want to do. Ilana, just learned Israeli fruits and vegetables have the most pesticides in the world. I eat mostly fruits and veg, probably still better than eating processed foods. Definitely still better than eating processed foods. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. Don't go there. Just do the best you can and see what's working for you, and, wash it the best you can. But I think it's super important. Again, it's like, my whole goal with all of this is like, you want to be a force of nature in your life. You want to live your life. No one like has the ambition as a child of like, I want to be thin. Like, no one thinks that when you're 2 years old, when you're 5 years old. I mean, I hope when you're 5 years old, I'm not thinking that. What you think is, I want to be freaking awesome. You're like, I want to do cool things. I want to have fun. I want to, whatever your thing is when you were a kid. And hopefully you still feel that now, of like, you just like want to live a great life, right? There comes a point where you become aware that, wow, my body is a big part of me. And the more that I feel like locked in and embodied, the more I'm able to be a force of nature in my life, and everything else that I want is really connected to that. And so, the point is, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Just keep moving. Just keep moving in the right direction. Keep doing the best you can. And yeah, wash your fruits and veggies, like wash them, don't get caught up on the details, because that won't help. Making yourself crazy, regardless what your goal is, making yourself crazy will not help. And I can tell you the truth is that, like, I really have strong feelings about that, because in my own just like journey and healing from my own like traumas of my life, and I don't use that word lightly, I'm being like honest with you. Like, there basically for a long time after going through some terrible things, that like I just was so defeated that I just like felt like emotionally and metaphorically I was just like falling further and further like down into the pit. And at a certain point I realized like there is no bottom, and falling further down will never get me where I want to go. And I have to just start climbing up and climbing out. Like, I'm not going to find another way. I'm not going to like find some magical solution, that like, oh great, now like it's not a problem anymore. Like, no, I still have all these problems. I just have to start climbing out. And the point of that, of like, why am I telling all these random information, is that don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Just start where you are, because as long as you're trying to be perfect, you will never make progress. I really believe that, because all it does is paralyze you, because you're looking for like the perfect thing to do, and like it doesn't exist. There's no perfect thing to do. You know, like, tell me when you find a perfect person and like, we'll talk. You know what I'm saying? If you find a perfect person, all that means is you don't know them. You know, like, they're lying. You don't know them well enough. Like, it doesn't exist. All we can do is like do the best that we can. And Miri says, I just started sweetener in my tea. So not all sweeteners are created equal. Some people are more or less sensitive to different kinds of sweeteners. I happen to be extremely sensitive to like sweeteners across the board. But in particular, yeah, aspartame, like synthetic sweeteners, like, ooh, that's like endocrine disruptor and like causes cancer and all of those things we don't want. The other thing, side note, that I really like about the hormonal approach is like you're making your whole self like healthier across the board, because like you're giving yourself what you need. You're giving your body opportunities to heal. So it's not like you're like white knuckling it. You know what I mean? Like you're healing your hormones. You're also like healing your relationship with your body, because you know what happens when you actually lose weight without like feeling like you're going to die in the process? It like boggles the mind. Like I've had a client be like, I'm so confused right now. I'm not grumpy. I'm not starving. I'm not cold. I feel happy and I'm losing weight. Like, what is going on? It's like a mind, what's that, like a little emoji, like the mind blown type of thing. And it just like brings up all these like, oh, like, do I really want this? Am I really ready for this? What is my life going to be like if I really am comfortable in my body? Like, it becomes like this whole journey. Like, obviously, like, I'm not like a therapist, so like that's not like my thing, but it's definitely part of it, because like you can't divorce those things. Like, anyways, the reason why you want it is because of those things. You want what you want from your life. That's why you want to be thin or healthy or whatever, however you want to define it. There's so many trigger words, but like, are stevia drops okay? Depends on the person. Oh, you mean from an endocrine it's not an endocrine disruptor. Stevia does not, I would like, without knowing, I can't advise your situation personally, but I permit it in my house. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not toxic. Like, oop, I dropped the phone. Versus like, yeah, like if, you know, if a recipe called for stevia, who do you miss when I was talking about you? But if a recipe calls for stevia, like, and you want to make it, that's fine. I wouldn't. That stevia is not inherently unhealthy the way that Splenda is inherently unhealthy and aspartame is inherently unhealthy, and high fructose corn syrup is inherently unhealthy, like more so than regular sugar. Why? Ask me why. Why is high fructose corn syrup more unhealthy than regular sugar? Isn't it all just about the calories? No, it's not all about the calories. High fructose corn syrup is worse because it has a stronger effect on your hormones. Why? Because when you eat regular sugar is about half and half glucose and fructose. Glucose goes right into your blood and can be used because it's right into your blood. Fructose can only be digested in your liver. So when you eat high fructose, and your liver is very connected to your hormones. When you eat high fructose corn syrup, it's like all the pressure's on your liver. Your poor little liver has to deal with all the fructose, which is why I don't recommend agave. I know I'm getting too specific now on all these things. It's overwhelming for people. The reason why I don't recommend agave, even though it's low glycemic, which means it doesn't have a strong effect on your blood sugar, is for the same reason. Agave has more fructose than high fructose corn syrup, which is why it doesn't affect your blood sugar, because there's very little glucose that gets into your blood. It all goes to your liver, your poor liver. It's like drinking alcohol. That's like what agave does to you. Anyways, I digress. So this is where we're at, people, is that you don't have to fight your body. And I would say fighting your body is only exacerbating the issue, just like, honestly, any relationship in your life. Let's see if my husband, I don't know if he's still watching, but, right, any relationship in your life, if there's issues in there that need to be corrected, if they're not how you'd like them to be, you want to work with it and not fight with it, right? So like with your husband, right? Like ideally, you don't want to be like head to head, strong arming each other. You want to like connect, understand each other. What's going on? Why is this happening? How can we come to a negotiation that is mutually beneficial? So when it comes to your body set weight point, we want to have that conversation with your body, right? So that's why it's all personalized. I'm okay, why is it advantageous for your body right now to have that set weight point? Your body's not doing it to screw you. Like, your body is brilliant, and it is making the best choices for you possible at every moment under the circumstances. And so we have to understand, why would your body think it's wise to have you be 70 pounds heavier than you feel comfortable, or than is even considered healthy? Why is that a healthy choice at this moment for your body? Why is it doing that? And once we see, because if it didn't do that, maybe there would be too much sugar in your blood. Maybe there's too, right? Or maybe, like, we don't know why until we uncover it, right? Like the same way, if your husband's mad at you or your kids are mad at you, you don't know why they're mad at you until you talk to them. What's going on? Why are you upset? Why does it seem like a good idea right now to not be warm and loving when that's what we want out of the relationship, right? So just ignoring that and like shoving it under the rug. I am trying to think how many details to share. I had a teacher once who said a lot of lovely things, but at one point I thought gave some just terrible advice. And she said that if you're ever talking to your husband and he's making you mad and you're afraid you're gonna like yell at him or just like say something rude, every time you're about to, just take a sip of water instead of saying it. And I was just like, that sounds like really awful advice. Because like, what are you gonna do 10 years later? You're just gonna hate him. Like, if he's saying, maybe, okay, you don't have to like say it meanly, but like if he's saying something that's bothering you, don't just take a sip of water. Say, hey, like that bothers me. Or maybe I misunderstood you, but what you just said made me feel X, Y, and Z. Or you have to have the hard conversation. You have to have the conversation. What's going on here? Maybe he doesn't know it's offensive to you. Maybe he's giving you a compliment, but you think it's mean. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't know until you know. And so the same thing when I sit down with my clients and we have that in-depth discussion of what's going on, of like why is it wise for you? Why is it the best thing for your body right now to have you storing an extra 50 or 20 or whatever it is pounds of fat tissue than you feel comfortable in your spirit? Which again, I know I sound like a total like Yahoo, but I mean, like, I think that's the truth, right? I mean, and your body, maybe it hurts. Maybe you get, I can tell you since I've lost like 45 pounds, and like, I still don't like wearing high heels just because they're a pain in the butt, but like every now and then I like to wear them, and now I can do it for several hours, and maybe my toes will hurt, but my back doesn't, and my back used to hurt if I would wear high heels for a while, even for like a little bit, and so like there's that physical benefit, do you know what I mean? But I think that it's more, we want to see what's going on and then create the solution from there. Why is that happening? And okay, great. So now we want to change the environment so it's not wise so that your body's like, oh, it was wise for me to have all this extra weight, but now it's even wiser to let it go, right? Let it go. I don't know that song. Whenever I try and sing Let It Go, I wind up singing Let It Go to the tune of Let It Be. Let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. Anyways. So that's the deal, is that the truth is it's a totally different game. And so that's how it works. So if you guys have any more questions, let me know. But I feel like it was pretty comprehensive on here. Oh crap, there's a couple other questions people had. I'm trying to remember. What about if someone asked me, like, what about if you're over 40? I'm like, totally relevant. And that's exactly the point. People are like, oh, when I was in my 30s, it was so much easier. And now I'm in my 40s and it's harder. Well, it's like, well, your hormones change. Just like when you were 6, you were probably, even if you were a heavy 6-year-old, you were probably less heavy than you were at 15, if you've been heavy that long, right? I can't remember the other questions. I wrote most of them down, so I think I covered most of them. But I love you all. You're awesome. And let me know if you have any more questions, and we'll do this again. Alrighty. Mwah. And obviously, if you're like, wow, I'm totally wanting to do this, then like, let me know. Like, if you want, like, you know, the more that I can figure out kind of more of a system to it, the more I'm going to teach more of the system of it. But right now I'm really seeing it like super duper individualized. And so I'm just doing it with individuals right now, but I do want to eventually create a course, but like, I don't know how soon I'm going to get to that because it's complex and I'm trying to like figure out the streamlining. But there we go. Alrighty. I'll talk to you guys. Bye.